Hello, everyone. Welcome to our show. Once again, we are here with Analyze This, and today's show is going to be a little bit different. We today have our future generation, our next generation. We have Missam here that has joined us as our guest today. And Missam, just introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Missam. I'm in the 10th grade, and my parents are from Pakistan and Bangladesh.
So, your parents are from Pakistan and Bangladesh. Who is from Pakistan and who's from Bangladesh?
My dad is from Pakistan, and my mom is from Bangladesh.
Okay. So today we are going to talk about our next generation, and we're going to talk about how our next generation sees us, being
Mhm,
South Asians and having immigrated to Canada, right?
mhm,
We want the viewers to know what kids that are born in Canada of parents that are from Pakistan or Bangladesh or South Asian countries like India and Sri Lanka, what they think about their society, the parents, the culture, all of that.
mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's just tell us a little bit. How much do you know about Bangladesh or Pakistan?
I don't know a lot because when I moved to Canada, we didn't really partake in a lot of the celebrations and traditions.
Hmm.
Well, not when we moved to Canada. I always lived in Canada, but
So you
when
were
I
born in Canada or you moved?
well, I was born in Canada. I was born
Oh,
in
okay,
Toronto and then moved to Calgary.
okay.
Yeah.
So do you see difference between life in Calgary versus life in Toronto?
Well, I was really little in Toronto, but I kind of think of Toronto as like the New York of Canada. So it's a little more like busy there. There's a lot more people, a little more
Yeah,
hectic.
it's bigger. It's a larger city.
Yeah. Over here, it's more like um, kind of more calm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, what do you think overall in terms of if you're not familiar with the Pakistani or Bengali culture, then how do you connect with your parents?
Um, well, I feel like now, since my parents have moved to Canada and they've lived here since they were like teenagers,
Hmm.
they, I feel like they don't really take a traditional approach to like raising me with all the traditions.
Hmm.
But I have one parent living in each city, so I feel like living with my mom, it's a little bit less traditional, unless we go like to the temple or to my grandma's house. But I feel like if I lived in Toronto, I'd probably celebrate more traditions and
Like, do
partake
you
in
know any
more,
traditions that you think you would be celebrating if you were living in Toronto?
like Eid and just like being surrounded by more culture.
Hmm. That's very interesting what you just said because you mentioned that your mom, if you were because you live with her, you go to temple, which is more like Hindu or Buddhist. So
Hmm.
your mom is Hindu or Buddhist?
Yeah, well, um, I don't think that we really follow a religion. It's more we go for my grandma, like for
So it's
New
more
Year.
like a social thing that you guys
Yeah.
attend. Okay. And you mentioned when you go to Toronto, where your dad is, and so in Toronto, you say you would celebrate Eid, so I'm guessing your dad is Muslim.
Yeah.
So doesn't that confuse you, like having one parent that's Hindu or Buddhist, even though they don't follow it, but you still
Mhm.
go to temple versus other parent that celebrates Eid?
It's not too confusing for me because when I was little and I lived in Toronto full time, I like remember all the traditions and all the like being surrounded by that type of culture. And
Yeah.
I miss it a lot at times because over here it's a lot more like just like the Canadian culture, like the culture
So
of
what's wrong with Canadian culture? A lot of people like Canadian culture.
yeah. It's just I don't feel personally like connected to. where I come from, like my ancestry here, or like
So
my traditions.
so how do you connect yourself with any tradition or like how do you feel where you belong? Where do you feel you belong to?
Um, I feel I feel that I belong equally to like my mom's traditions and my dad's traditions. I feel I can
Okay.
like resonate with both sides.
So, but you said that you know very little about the culture. So how can you belong to cultures that you don't know much about versus the culture that you're actually raised in, which is, I'm understanding, is Canadian culture?
Um, I mean, I can connect with um the side that I don't know much about by like when we go to my grandma's house, we always like eat traditional food, and there's always like Bollywood shows playing, and it's always the TV's always on the Bollywood channel. And she's had like
Yeah.
ceremonies in her house before with monks and stuff, and so in that way I do learn more, but it's just not like a constant
Hmm.
connection that I think I'd feel if I lived in Toronto, like being raised.
So what happens when you go to Toronto?
Um, I just feel like I'm surrounded by more people who like are also Pakistani and people
Hmm.
who speak Urdu, and I don't speak Urdu, but I feel at home being surrounded by people who do, and people who speak
So
Bengali
doesn't it
too.
feel awkward when they're sorry, continue. I couldn't hear you.
I also feel at home when I'm surrounded by people who speak Bengali too, though. Like not just like it's equal on both sides.
So can you speak Bengali?
No, I wish I could speak
So
both
you can't speak
languages.
Urdu, you can't speak Bengali, but you enjoy being with people that can speak Urdu and Bengali.
Yeah,
What about your
because
friends? Are your friends mostly Canadian or are they from different cultures?
my friends are, yeah, they're all Canadian, born here. So yeah,
So
not
do
really.
they ever ask you about your culture and you wonder about it?
Um, like if I had to like go to the temple a certain day, or like I was at my grandma's house, or maybe like sometimes even listening to Bollywood music that I like, they might ask about that, and I just give a little explanation, but that's all.
So you do understand Bollywood music, you understand what they're saying.
I don't understand what they're saying. It's just it's like nostalgic to listen to because that's what I was surrounded with like as a really little child.
Hmm, interesting, interesting. So, what about cultural differences? Like, I know that you just mentioned that you feel you belong to Pakistani and Bengali culture as opposed to Canadian culture. You relate more to Pakistani culture and Bengali culture as opposed to Canadian culture.
Hmm.
So, with the culture also comes certain restrictions, for example,
Hmm.
right? So, for example, the way you dress, or if you can wear makeup, if you cannot wear makeup, you
Hmm.
know? So, things like that. How does that work for you?
Well, my mom raising me here, um, she just tells me like if she's not okay with something that I'm wearing or makeup or anything, but mostly it's like pretty free, and I wouldn't do anything crazy.
Hmm. What about when you go to Toronto? Does your dad put restrictions on things?
No, but if it's like if there's like an event where it's more like Pakistani Muslim people who really care about like those restrictions, and he'll let me know, and obviously out of respect I like follow those rules because yeah, just to be respectful.
Okay. So, but does he ask you to, him being Muslim, does he ask you to wear hijab or something, or?
No, I don't wear hijabs.
No, but has he asked you?
No, you no,
What do
I've
you
never.
think? What do you think about hijabs overall?
I think if you're Muslim and you want to wear hijab, then you
Sorry.
should definitely go for it and like embrace your religion and your culture in that way. Um, but I've met like some of my dad's Muslim friends, and they've said to me before, like, "Oh, it's not really something that has to be required. Like, you can choose whether or not you want to wear one." And I
Hmm.
think that that's um, good to know that you have some freedom with it, and you can
Yeah.
if you want to, and it's completely fine if you want to.
So they said that it's personal choice. Your dad didn't say that it's your personal choice, or
Well, yeah, yeah, he was part of the conversation and agreed, and yeah.
okay. And what about like other ways that you connect to the culture? I understand that Bollywood is predominantly Indian, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and your parents being one being from Pakistan and one being from Bangladesh, right?
Mm-hmm.
Neither of them are actually technically Indian.
Mm-hmm.
None of them are involved in Bollywood per se, right?
Yeah.
So, what about the Bengali culture? What about the Pakistani culture? Is there like specific music or songs or dances that you are interested in?
Well, when I was like 10, there was a lot of weddings. All my mom's sisters were getting married, and they
Sounds like
all
your
had,
mom has a lot of sisters.
yeah, um, she has a few, and they were all getting married like year after year, and they all had traditional weddings, traditional Bengali weddings, and if they married someone they see they'd have another ceremony too.
Hmm.
So um, during that time, there's a lot of dances being choreographed for like surprises at the reception, and me and my little sister, we they choreographed a dance for us to do. So we actually did, I think, 3 or 4 dances.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very nice.
like
And
at
so you
least.
did Bengali
Yeah.
dances, you're saying, or you did Bollywood dances?
One was Bengali dance, and the other three were just Bollywood that my aunts choreographed, and
Hmm,
they taught us it. Yeah.
very interesting. So now you also mentioned on the other end Eid.
Hmm.
So what do you know about Eid and what do you think about Eid? So there are two questions.
I
First,
think
tell us what you know about Eid.
what I know about Eid is that um, I don't know much. I know it's a celebration, and it's not just like a day long. It's like there's stuff leading up to it, and you fast during Eid,
Mhm.
and there's parties that you go to, and there's a lot of food. You get to dress up.
What are the parties for?
For Eid,
Okay.
yeah,
So there's a lot of food.
yeah.
What else?
Um, I mean, I wish I could tell you the like meaning behind all of it, but I don't remember because the only time I've been there for the celebration was when I was younger.
Yeah. Do you
So I
ever
don't
remember getting Eid?
know.
You don't remember getting Eid?
No.
Interesting. What about how many Eids there are there in a year?
One or two? I
So
don't.
just so that you know, there are two Eids in a year.
Mhm.
One is the Eid that you fast for the month. of Ramadan you fast, and then there is Eid.
Mhm.
That's that's considered like meaty Eid or choti Eid or no.
Mhm.
That's one Eid. There is another Eid that's called Bakr Eid, where you give sacrifice of a lamb or a cow or a goat or you know.
Mhm.
Did you know about those two?
No, I
So,
didn't.
so do you feel like your parents don't tell you about their culture? Do you think they discuss their culture with you?
Um, well, I think that um my mom and my grandma, they don't necessarily have like a really close relationship. So, a lot of stuff my mom doesn't even know about her own culture. So she
So your
can't
mom
really.
is not very cultural per se, so she's not very close to Bengali culture.
Yeah.
Hmm. What about your dad?
Um, I feel like he's a little bit closer to Pakistani culture since he like speaks Urdu at home and he is Muslim and um he he just like he celebrates Eid. Like me and my mom, we don't celebrate a lot of the traditions. I don't even know of many of them.
Hmm. So, but how do you know? Like, for example, with your mom, you go to the temple and you know that when you guys are going to temple, it's just a social thing and it's not a religious thing for your mom, right? For your dad, is celebrating Eid just a social thing or is it a religious thing?
Um, I think it's a religious thing as
Mhm.
well as a social thing
So
because
it's
I feel
combination
like
of both.
yeah,
So does he pray?
I don't actually know. I'd have to ask him.
Oh, okay. But has he ever told you about like praying or told you things about
Yeah,
religion?
I've seen him pray before, and when I visited my family in Toronto, I've prayed before because I saw everyone else doing it when I was little.
But did you know what you were doing? Did anyone tell you, okay, if you're praying, you have to say this or do this or
No one told me what I had to say, but I just copied everyone else because I wanted to like feel a part of it.
okay, so you were just copying, you didn't know what to say. You
Yeah,
didn't ask your dad? Like you didn't ask him like what am I supposed to pray here? Like am I supposed to
I
read
I
something
did
or
ask. I asked him, and I also asked one of my friends who was the same age as me, and they told me what to do and what it was all about, but I don't remember now, like what they
so
said.
it sounds like your parents are not like pushing their religion or culture to you, right?
Mhm.
So do you feel that is the case, or do you think that they try to encourage you to get involved in their culture or their religion?
Um, I don't think they'd like ever push me to. I think that like if I wanted to live like mostly Canadian, like fully Canadian lifestyle and just live like every other kid who I go to school with, they'd be fine with that.
Hmm.
But um, I think it's kind of difficult because one side doesn't know like a whole lot about their religion or culture, and the other side I don't get to see as much. So I don't feel completely surrounded by my culture as I'd like to.
Okay. But it's very interesting that you are telling us that, you feel more connected to Bengali and Pakistani culture as opposed to Canadian culture, while your parents seem not to be connected to their cultures very much and not
Yeah.
encouraging you to be involved with their cultures. Do you know why they're like that? Why they're not? Your one side you said she doesn't know, your mom doesn't know much about her culture. She's just very Canadianized, right?
Mhm.
and your dad does know about his culture, but he's not telling you anything about it, or he's not encouraging you about it. Why do you think that might be? What's the reason?
Um, I think they might want to like let me decide for myself what I want to do, like what I want to partake in.
Hmm.
And I think that growing up here, like not surrounded by older culture, they might think that I just want to be like all the other kids.
Really? So,
Yeah.
so what, in your perspective, them giving you that openness that you can decide on your own versus them guiding you to be towards their culture or their religion or their traditions. What do you think is better? You like the way
Um,
it is, or you would have preferred it to be that they would tell you more and get you more involved?
well, I'd like it if I could be more connected with my culture, like maybe learn Bengali and learn Urdu and um, maybe do more traditional things. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm kind of surrounded by it now because my mom, she always cooks traditional food and we watch traditional movies and stuff like that and listen to music and stuff like that. But I would like to be more connected.
Hmm. How connected do you think you are to culture based on the cultural food? Like, do you like Bengali food or Pakistani food, or do you prefer Canadian food, or do you like everything?
No, I love Bengali and Pakistani food. It's probably my favorite kind of food. I don't necessarily like love Canadian food. Like I don't like steak and all that type of stuff. I've stopped eating it actually.
Really?
Yeah.
So what do you eat then? You just eat Bengali food or Pakistani food?
Yeah.
But isn't it
Mm,
spicy for you?
no. I I've adjusted to the spice because like ever since I was little I've been eating that type of food. So I guess
Hmm.
I'm kind of like um neutralized to it, I guess.
Any particular foods you can tell us that you really like, your favorites?
Um I like biryani and I like halim and dal.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what comes to mind right now.
Okay. So you like a lot more, but these are the three things that are coming to your mind right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you were given an opportunity to visit Bangladesh or Pakistan, how eager would you be to visit those countries?
Um well, I don't know because I know that those countries aren't like the wealthiest, but I would want to like go there and see how my parents lived when they were there
Hmm.
and just like be surrounded by those people and the culture.
So you want to explore the culture, you want to explore the country on the basis that
Hmm.
how your parents might have lived or what they might have seen on those
Yeah,
bases, right?
yeah.
And don't you feel scared of going to those countries? Do you know what you mentioned that those countries are not as rich? Are there any other factors that worry you about going to those countries?
Um, I mean, I don't want to be like rude or anything. I would definitely visit those countries if I had the opportunity. But like, my mom's told me stories about seeing like a lot of like stray dogs and animals that like aren't taken care of and might get hurt, and that makes me sad. And just like people who are homeless, who are like
Hmm,
begging for money, and she couldn't do anything. And I that would be a little bit emotional for me.
true. But there like just like in Canada, right? Like you have
Yeah,
different cities. Different cities
yeah,
have different feels, right?
yeah.
People's living style is different. Just like that, Bangladesh and Pakistan have cities, big cities that
Hmm.
have certain feel versus small towns that may be different, you know?
Yeah, I think I've
So,
definitely like, sorry, I think I've definitely gotten more of like, I've been told more of like the bad things maybe, so maybe that's why I'm a little hesitant about it. But I do know that there's like really nice places and there's like nice cities and stuff, and I definitely want to visit all of it.
but your parents are not encouraging you to go.
I think my mom has told me that like maybe we'll go when I'm older,
Okay.
like in my 20s.
The reason I'm asking that is because most parents that are from these backgrounds, like Pakistani parents and Bengali parents, they tend to like encourage their kids to be very culturally involved. They want their kids to know the rules and routines and limitations of their cultures. They
Hmm.
want their kids. Language is something that they're usually parents are weak in,
Hmm.
that they don't teach their kids. Also, kids don't tend to want to learn, maybe, or I don't know what the case is. But kids your age from Generation Z tend not to know the language mostly, and parents try to teach them a little bit, but not force it. But religion-wise, parents are very strict, and they teach them very much about the religion. So it seems like your parents are very different in terms of training you or teaching you these things. So
Hmm.
do you feel that way too, or is just my observation in your case is wrong?
Well, I think that my mom's mom raised her very traditionally and very like restricted. So she didn't want to do that for me. She wanted me to like have my own, like decide for myself what I want and what I don't want, and like be a little
Hmm.
bit more free. Obviously not completely free, but like a little bit more um free than like more opportunities than she had. Being very
Yeah.
restricted. I think that if I lived in Toronto with like the Pakistani culture and I would have been um maybe a little bit more like told to dress more conservatively maybe, or like um like being raised Muslim maybe. But I think that like I'd be raised that way, but I could probably like make it up for myself as I get older.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, because the reason I'm asking you that is because if you were, let's say, you were in Toronto with your dad and he's Muslim and he would have raised you in Muslim way, right?
Mhm.
Do you think he would have forced it on you, or do you think uh, because you say that you're not forced, you're given open opportunity to decide what you want to do. So I'm just wondering if you feel that if you would have been in Toronto, you would have been forced.
Um, Not like forced, but it would just be what I would be like taught as a child, and then I'd learn more as I grow up. So I
Hmm.
think I'd just be taught that um, when I'm young, and then I could probably make it up for myself as I'm older.
Yeah.
But over here, I wasn't like taught any religion or um, anything like that, like any like clothing restrictions or eating restrictions or anything.
Hmm. So in terms of let's come to you being Generation Z, right? There is element of you being a child of parents that are from immigrated parents that are from Pakistan and Bangladesh, right? Then let's talk about, now, you being in this generation, Generation Z. has this tendency that I recently heard about, that 40% of Generation Z believes that for them, having reliable internet is more important than having reliable washroom. So, what do you think about it?
Um, well, I think that having a washroom is like a necessity to live. Like you need somewhere to go, obviously. Um, but I also think that the internet is really prevalent in like society and in terms of knowing things. Because I feel like if you maybe didn't have the internet, you might not be caught up on a lot of things that are going on in the world. Like
Hmm.
obviously you might have the news, but I feel like the internet, like um, you have a lot of different information and you can learn a lot of new things. Obviously, there's also a lot of cons to the internet. Um, but I mean, I think that analogy might be a little bit off, thinking that you need internet more than the
Well, then
toilet.
you might fall into the remaining 60% because obviously 60% don't think that. It's only
Yeah,
40% that think that,
yeah. I mean,
right?
personally, I'd rather be able to go to the washroom in like a nice washroom with an actual toilet and working water instead of like going outside and then just having the internet instead of having a nice washroom.
Hmm. So, how much do you think is the time that you spent with your family or your parents, as opposed to time you spend with internet or on your cell phone?
Um, I think that now during coronavirus, everyone feels like really bored because everyone's at home. Um, and you're constantly surrounded by your family at this time. And on top of that, you have the pressures of school and all that. So, I mean, I spend a lot of time on the internet just like watching movies and TV shows and like browsing different apps, but I do spend time with my family.
Hmm.
Obviously, we do have like our separate times where we just do what we want. That's what we do most of the day. And we like if we see something funny on the internet, we like send it to each other. That's like also a way of communicating with your family
One
within
of
your
the
household.
one of the previous show we did on Analyze This, we were discussing the downsides of internet, and we were mentioning how nowadays people are just sitting across from each other, and friends are in all in one room, but everyone is on their phone messaging each other instead of talking face to face. Do you experience that?
Not necessarily. I feel like when it's me, my mom, and my sister, and we're all in the living room, we'll usually like talk and discuss different things and maybe like watch a movie, talk about maybe family drama or whatever's going on. Um, but we do text each other when we're in the same household. I
Hmm.
think it's just become something that's like a little bit more convenient because you can get that like instant response without anyone having to like physically get up and go and ask.
Well, hey.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe
So,
it's a bad thing.
what about with friends?
Well, with friends, obviously, like right now, no one's really seeing their friends, or maybe you shouldn't be, but
Yeah, because not everyone is following the rules. True.
yeah, yeah. Um, but I think it's important to keep in touch with your friends, especially when you're not seeing them on a regular basis like you normally would
Hmm.
if you were going to school, or even like if you are going to school, I guess like I'm doing online school, so I don't know like how much you can talk to someone during the day or how restricted it is. Um, but yeah, I think it's important to like keep in touch with those people.
Now, I'll ask you a very different question. I don't know if it would apply to you or not. There are parents that are very restrictive on their kids in normal life. Now, pandemic being here, right? And by restrictive, I mean religiously or culturally restrictive, right?
Hmm.
So now that there is a pandemic here, of course, people are spending a lot more time at their homes, including the children, including the kids your age, right?
Hmm.
Uh, and they're getting to spend time with their parents.
Hmm.
And the parents are restrictive, and uh, sometimes it ends up being a bad recipe or a recipe for a disaster, as they say,
Hmm.
right? Do you think it has had any impact on you being cooped up in the house with your parents? Well, your mom and your
Hmm.
sister, but mainly your elders, even though your
Hmm.
mom is not very religious or culturally in tuned or enforcing the culture on you. Does it have impact on you?
Um, well, yeah, I think that being in a like in one household with the same people constantly and constantly being surrounded by them, obviously there might like be arguments. Like of
Hmm.
course all kids fight with their parents at least once in their life. And I think that
I think more
living
than once.
yeah, definitely more than once. But I think that being in that enclosed space for such a long period of time can definitely maybe lead to fights. I
Hmm.
know that I might not have it as bad since my mom like isn't forcing anything on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think would have happened if your mom was forcing you, or if you were living with your dad and your dad was forcing you to be very religious or very conservative, or enforcing certain rules on you?
Hmm. Um, well, I think for kids who do go through that, like going to school might be an escape
Hmm.
from that constant, like, the constant rules. And that's probably a really nice thing for them if they
Yeah.
don't like it. Um, but I think that it would be harder if I did have those rules because, like, it would be frustrating. I wouldn't have that escape, I guess.
Yeah. So it means that kids use school as also a form of escape from their home lives, right?
Hmm.
Especially if their home lives are very restrictive.
Hmm.
But it's less of a burden on children or on kids that are school going age if their parents are more open and more uh, you know considerate towards their children.
Hmm.
So do you think this is going to impact the nature of relationship you have with your parents once pandemic is over, like once you start going back to school?
Um, I don't think so. I think we might just like go back to normal. Obviously, they might be a little bit more cautious of who. Wait, sorry, like going back to school or when like it's all over?
When it's all over.
Okay. I think that they might be a little bit more cautious with like sanitary reasons.
Hmm.
Like still like using some of those like 6 feet away, like maybe still wearing a mask even, stuff like that. Just
Well,
like
I don't think masks are going away anytime soon
yeah.
because they're even when the virus, even when the what's it called the what's vaccine. Sorry,
Hmm.
I was forgetting that word. Even when the vaccine is administered, and even when people are going to start having to have the vaccine, even then, not everyone would have had vaccine right away.
Hmm.
So they're still recommending for people to wear the mask.
Yeah. I think that's good. I
So
think that my parents would still like tell me, "Oh, wear a mask, make sure you have a mask." And I think it would
hmm,
mostly go back to normal because my parents do go to work, so I don't see them like constantly. And we do, like, I mostly stay in my room. I go downstairs sometimes to hang out with them. So I don't think it
does
would be much different.
Doesn't it get depressing to be sitting at home and in the room all the time?
It does a little bit, but I mean, what else can I do? I can't go to many
So
places.
let me phrase this this way, right? Like when I was a child, we had tendency of going out and playing with our friends,
Mhm.
right? Now the generation has changed. Now you guys have internet and cell phones and laptops and iPads and stuff, right? So mostly kids are spending their time on that. Do you think this pandemic is easier on you guys because you guys have all these things? Or
Um,
do you think it's harder for you guys because it would be harder to go back, excuse me, after the pandemic because you guys would have gotten so used to of these things?
um, well, I think that the pandemic would be hard on any generation. Like they would have definitely struggled in different ways, but it's probably a little bit easier for my generation since we do have that like instant messaging or you can get an instant response from anyone anytime. You can FaceTime, like you can watch a bunch of movies, you can watch YouTube. There's so many things that you can do on the internet to occupy your time during the pandemic right now. And I think if like during my parents' time there was a pandemic, they might have not coped as easily because there's only one phone and like you can't call two people at the same time, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yes.
And you
I
cannot
think
have video call.
yeah.
And obviously, there were no cell phones at that time. So
Mhm.
for us, for example, we used to have a home phone.
Yeah.
And from home phone, obviously, the parents would have priority of who they can talk to versus
Hmm.
children.
Yeah.
So it was very different times.
Hmm.
So can you imagine life without cell?
I think I can because when I was like really little, my mom still had a flip phone, and I used to play outside with my friends and make up like imaginary games and stuff like that. So I can imagine it, but maybe like kids who are born now, like specifically only in technology, and they've grown up watching like YouTube on their iPad and stuff like that. I know I have a cousin who's really little who does that. It might be a little bit different for them. They might not know like how to live without it.
Yeah. So another thing I want to ask you is now that understanding that we are in an information age, you can go on YouTube, you can go on internet, you can search anything, right?
Hmm.
You have said that you have very much been interested in Pakistani culture, in Muslim culture, also in Bengali, in Buddhist culture, right?
Hmm.
So have you tried researching it online or have you tried to find out about it?
Yeah, I have. I've tried to like use different apps to try and learn the languages,
Hmm.
but it never really worked for some reason. I do know French,
So you
and
speak English and French.
yeah, but I've never I only understand certain things from each language, and I don't know how to speak it.
You
I've
mean each
tried,
language, Urdu and Bengali?
yeah.
Sorry, I was gonna say Punjabi for some reason. I don't know why.
I've also tried like watching movies to try and understand,
Yeah.
but nothing's really picked up yet.
Okay, but you are making a conscious effort to learn the language.
Yeah, I feel like I could definitely maybe make more of an effort. Maybe I'm getting a little lazy,
Why
but
are you asking your parents? You can ask your parents to teach you.
yeah, I've mentioned it to them before.
Then what's stopping them, or why is it not happening?
Um, well, I guess my mom, if she doesn't speak Bengali very often, it's only like if she's with her mom or surrounded by like her sisters or something, and even then, it's mostly just English.
So it's more like habit based because your
Yeah.
parents don't have habit
Hmm.
of speaking in their mother tongue. They're mostly speaking English, so you don't come across the language that often,
Hmm.
and it hinders your ability to learn the language.
Hmm.
What about the cultures, though?
Um, well, I think that with the cultures, I kind of have like when I was little, I went to school and I thought that, and all the kids are like Caucasian and they don't know about any of that culture and stuff like that. And I didn't know about theirs, so I kind of wanted to like fit in with that and
Hmm.
not embrace my culture and kind of be embarrassed of it, sadly. Like I didn't want to bring any cultural food.
You went through that phase where you were embarrassed of your culture and you wanted to fit into Caucasian culture, into Canadian culture.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Like I didn't.
What changed? How did you end up deciding that, okay, now I want to know about my culture?
Because I think that um, I don't want to be,
Bland?
well,
I'm sorry.
well,
I'm just joking around.
I guess, but mostly like I don't want to be forced to have to, because like there's so many societal standards of like what's normal,
Hmm.
and I didn't feel like what my culture was normal or okay. Not, I thought it was okay, but like I didn't think it was normal because no one else was doing it at my school.
Socially
Um,
acceptable.
yeah, so I don't want to feel like something like everything should be like completely like Caucasian culture, completely like Canadian. Like there should be different, like a lot of more diversity and stuff like that. And I don't want to feel like I have to adhere to someone else's standards when I want to embrace my own culture and stuff like that.
But how did you come to that conclusion? What happened? Is there some incident that happened, or is just one day you woke up and you decided, no, I want to learn about my culture and I want to be proud of my culture?
Um, I think that I don't exactly know. I think that it was maybe like um, I realized that I was kind of like forcing myself to adhere to something that I wasn't,
Hmm.
because I was like made fun of for certain things, and people like it was kind of shocking to me. Like people didn't even know the difference between South Asian and East Asian, and
Hmm.
they didn't know that there's like a difference there. So I think people like kids I went to school with like didn't know anything about it, so they make fun of it, or and I was scared of that. I was really, really scared of being made fun of for my culture.
And now you don't feel scared?
Um, Now I think I'm a little bit more confident in it. Like if someone makes fun of me for that, I would call them out for it and tell them that it's wrong.
Yeah. So you have gained self-confidence.
Hmm.
So did your parents help you gain this confidence, or your school, or your teachers, or your friends? How did you gain confidence?
I think I realized it on my own, especially I think I realized it through like being surrounded by the culture and realizing that I felt at home with it more
Hmm.
than I did trying to be something that I'm not.
Hmm.
Um, so that made me realize, like, yeah, I want to embrace it. I want to be more confident in it. And someone who makes fun of it is a rude person and they like an ignorant person.
Interesting. So we are in last 10 minutes of our show. So I wanted to just get an idea from you in terms of your perspective of like how connected do you feel to your parents? Like, do you feel you can communicate with them or they understand you? Or do you think you understand them where they're coming from and you can communicate with them considering that you're predominantly raised in Canadian culture, and they're coming from immigrant culture of Pakistan and Bangladesh.
Um, I think some things are definitely hard for me to resonate with. I mean, I try my best to understand, but obviously I haven't been through it myself, so I'll never know what it's like to come from a different country and move here and have to learn new things.
Hmm.
But I mean, I appreciate that they did that, and I admire it because it's definitely a hard thing to do. And I feel like I can understand certain aspects, obviously not the full thing. Like I can understand um, being sort of different in your like school
Hmm.
because you don't look like everyone else. You don't have the same culture as everyone else. So I can understand a little bit of that, but definitely not like having to learn everything, that type of stuff.
Have you seen any new immigrant children coming into your school?
I haven't actually. I've seen other brown kids like me, but that's pretty much it.
Okay. So you identify yourself as being brown kid.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right. And what would be your advice to parents who have children like you? How they can make things easier for their children? How they can connect better with their children? In your mind?
Um, well, I think that maybe like it would help to be more open minded and try and understand that um, they feel like they have certain expectations going to school in a place where no one follows like the same rules that they have to follow.
Hmm.
So maybe like be a little bit more open minded about what they have to go through and their ideas and stuff like that.
Okay. Now, one question that keeps getting raised in some of our shows is about branding, about brand name clothing and shoes and stuff,
Hmm.
right? And how children want to buy it, kids want to buy it, right? And
Hmm.
parents are like thinking that why? What's the need for it? What is your perspective on that?
Well, going to school with those type of kids, there's like, like these rich white kids who live in big houses who like they like have the money to do that. They get like a weekly allowance to like do whatever they want. I guess their parents just like buy it for them and they like show it off. And you
Hmm.
kind of get that feeling like, oh, I won't get like that type of praise. I won't get that type of recognition or feel like I won't be able to fit in if I don't have those things. So they might feel that way. I know I felt that way before. And it's kind of sad because um now like being away from school and all those people, I realized that a lot of that stuff doesn't matter to me, and I don't want to spend my money on um stuff that I don't necessarily want just to like impress other people. I
Hmm.
don't think
So
that
this is from
I
pandemic.
yeah,
So
like
pandemic has
before.
taught you something that, brand names are not that important. You don't want to spend exorbitant amount of money
Mhm.
just to fit in into the, school certain circle, right?
Mhm.
So, but do you think once you start going back to school, do you think same kind of pressures may fall on you again and you may have to change your mind again?
um I'm kind of scared of that. That's like one of the reasons I don't want to go back because since I've been like out of school and just by myself for months, I've like felt more like myself with because I don't have those pressures of other people.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I'm kind of scared to go back and experience that again.
That's very interesting. So, in other words, you're saying that if you go to school, you know that there might be pressures to fit into certain crowds
Hmm.
are feeling right now, which is why you can say these things. So would you recommend for parents to buy the stuff that their kids are asking them for, or do you think the parents should uh, avoid or resist buying stuff for the children that are name brands just to satisfy them to be able to fit in?
Um, I mean, that whole concept is, well, not concept, that whole like idea is kind of um weird for me because I can see like both sides. Like, if you're like a parent, you don't want to like spend a lot of money on something that you don't think is useful or that is needed, but also like if you're a kid, you feel the need that to like fit in with all your friends and
Mm,
you want those things to feel accepted.
yeah.
So I don't I don't know where, like, which side I'd um agree with, because I mean, like, from experience I know that once you have those things, like after a year there's going to be like a new thing and you're not going to want it anymore.
Don't you think your parents try to fit into their specific crowds too?
Yeah, I do think so. Like,
Like your dad
when,
celebrating Eid, he's
yeah.
trying to fit in with Muslim group, right? With Pakistani
Hmm.
group, right?
Hmm.
Your mom going to temple, even though she is not very religious, she's trying to fit into her group, right?
Hmm.
So your parents are trying to fit in too. It's just the way they want to fit in is a different level versus
Hmm.
when you're trying to fit in, trying to get nice shoes with nice name brands or
Hmm.
shirts or clothes for nice name brand. Is it any different, you think?
Um, I think maybe the only difference is like the cost. Like, name brand stuff is expensive, and going to the temple or celebrating Eid, obviously you have to like wear certain things and buy certain things, but um like having like that constant like, oh, I need to buy this new expensive thing that's gonna get really expensive, and
Hmm.
Eid is only like 2 times a year.
Okay.
So like I think that there definitely are
Cost
similar.
benefit wise, you think it's more beneficial to go through these, like fitting into Eid or fitting into temple versus to have expensive clothes because they're name brand?
Yeah, I think my opinion on that is a little bit um altered though, because um I haven't gone through those things. Like, it's not very prevalent in my life, so I kind of crave that. And other kids might not, since they go through it constantly.
Okay, I'm sorry. What do you mean by you haven't gone through what?
Like, um I haven't been really like surrounded by those pressures of having to go to the temple and having to celebrate Eid and having to do all that. So maybe like someone else might favor the expensive things over doing those, like the celebrations.
Do you think that your eagerness to want to connect to the culture is because you have been given open opportunity to decide what you want? Do you think you would have thought differently if you were forced, if the culture was forced down your throat that you have to be Pakistani, you have to be Muslim, or you have to be Bengali, you have to be Buddhist or something like that?
Um, I think if I was forced and I didn't want to, I definitely would have resented it a little bit and had some negative feelings towards it. But I think either way, I would have always tried to embrace the culture because that's like who I am and where I come from. I think
Interesting.
that right now I probably crave it more since, yeah, I'm not fully surrounded by it and I want to be a little bit more. Um, Also, probably because I kind of neglected it when I was little and I didn't want to be a part of it.
So, but now you do. Now you see the value in it.
Yeah.
So, any last things that you want to say? We are about to end the show. So, any final words you have?
Um, Not really. It was fun.
Okay. Taryn, thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate your words. You
Hmm.
have actually opened our eyes to a lot of things today in this discussion. For viewers, I think you can understand that someone like Missam, who has been given opportunity to decide on her own, has decided on her own what culture she belongs to or connects to, and we should trust our children to be able to make right decisions, right choices, because after all, they are our children, and they ought to be as smart as we are, I guess, right? If
Yeah.
not better. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mizim, for coming in today. We really appreciate it. And thank you very much for the viewers to watch our show. We will be back next week again with another show. And until then, please like, subscribe, and comment on our shows. We'll need to see you next week. Thank you. Bye.